the specs that I provided. The Gus added one, I think it's just that standard language in his contracts. And under assignments and subcontracts, and then there's another one in here that finance puts in all their bid documents. And it was just standard language.
I think the only time that that occurs is when the truck goes down. You'll see I think it's called Premier or something like that. That's out on the road. They have some rental agreement, and I don't know if that's their guys driving the truck or if that's if they rent it.
I have seen a Premier truck
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So, but honestly, I mean,
One is
we could specifically add that type of language that, you know, only allowable during, you know, down situations or whatever we want to add to it.
I mean, you know,
Or just take
like
it
I
out.
said, I just want to make sure that, you know, I got to be careful how I say this, but when you have 3 people that came in to this, you know, do the bid process, and then 2 of them came in and said, you know what, we don't want to bid, or we're going to come, but we just not going to bid anything. And to me, I would be comfortable personally, I don't know how council feels, that those 2 companies should be eliminated from being able to subcontract.
Add that language in, you know, excluding.
Yeah, because I want to make sure there's
Who
no,
were they with it?
you know, private conversations going on that, hey, you don't bid, but I'll give you some subcontracting.
Yeah,
Not saying
just-
that is.
I mean, just add language that, well, which it kind of says right now that they cannot subcontract unless specifically provided permission from the city of Taylor. And I think that's kind of how it's written right here is,
don't know,
I'm not saying that anywhere.
I got it, well, which one are you reading?
You're saying the
Assignments and subcontract?
That's right.
The contractor may not assign or otherwise transfer or delegate any right, obligation, duty hereunder without the written express consent of the city.
Right, that's
But that's
assigned, but
assigning
then the
this
next
contract.
sentence is.
However, the contractor may
subcontract.
enter into subcontracts provided that any subcontractor acknowledges the binding nature of this contract, and such subcontract incorporates the contract by reference, including all exhibits here too.
So I wasn't sure when I asked the question, Keith, why that was added, so it made me wonder or believe that the intent was to subcontract. And you said Gus added that language, I don't know if he
Yeah.
added it at your request? or
No, it was
at
not at my
GFL's
request at all.
Why did we change that provision of this contract unless subcontracting was a specific discussion point at some
It
point?
wasn't even brought up at
since
any
January?
time, to be honest with
Because
you.
if not, I don't want to give them an easy out to subcontract.
Okay,
I think it should just say that, you know, they're allowed to use in case of a breakdown, you know, whatever company they use.
Supplemental
And then if they,
subcontract.
and these 2 companies could never subcontract for them.
How about unless it's an emergency approved by the city?
What constitutes an emergency? If they need it right away, they need it right away. They're not on the show.
Well, emergency to me is if we can't get our rubbish picked up for some reason by the contractor, and we agree that we need to get them in here, and we'd have to be a temporary
I
basis.
would honestly, I would just strike it, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, when they rent from Premier, I think they just rent a truck anyways. So I think it's, I don't think they, I think they stack it, right. So honestly, I don't think there's any issue just removing it.
Okay, number 5, removing,
I'm just striking.
that's all good with that? Okay.
The other,
Go ahead.
the other thing I wanted to address is, you know, how do we get ourselves in a better position to get multiple bidders the next time a contract comes up? You know, we heard from GFL in January that they didn't like the previously agreed upon pricing. We went out for bid in March to try and secure a contract for July 1st. And I believe we heard, I think the official response from the Public Waste Management, whoever the other players are, we needed more time to make this sort of decision. So to me, this, number one, you can confirm if that's true, but that's what I've been hearing. What are we going to do different in this contract to guarantee that 3 years from now we won't be in the same boat at the last minute saying, oh shoot, we're stuck with price increases because we've only got one player?
Well, I don't think you can have any guarantee, because what it looks like, what's happening is a lot of these, the 3 companies aren't really expanding the residential business. They're just kind of maintaining their current contracts, but there's a few things that we can do to help. One is we need to change our procedure with a 3-year contract, because one of the problems I believe that I was told is that they would have to buy equipment, and they needed 6 to 9 months. There's a couple issues. One is they don't have the equipment laying around for a city our size to pick up a contract and start it. They would need lead time to buy new equipment, and they need additional employees. And with this economy, they currently are having problems getting employees just to maintain their current contracts. And another part of that would be the return on investment in 3 years. If they had to buy, several trucks to maintain to do our community, they're not going to get their ROI in 3 years in the contract. So a longer contract is going to be, better for them and for us probably to attract more business. A 3-year contract, I don't believe is enough for a company to go out and buy 10 to 12 trucks to service our community. Then they don't get it. Then they go out to bid again in 3 years, and they might not get the contract.
And I'm curious,
I don't disagree with you. I think
no,
that,
I don't either, but I'm curious why we didn't go out to bid like 9 to 12 months before the expiration.
Yeah, but
That would
that's
be-
all in
For a
hindsight.
contract of this size, that's pretty standard.
I mean, I started this at the beginning of January trying to negotiate a contract, and the specs were done 4 or 5 days after we got that letter. But then there were some other issues that came into play. When we provided the specs to finance, and Richard was working on it, then we decided that let's get the commercial added into this contract, because that was expiring in 6 months, and we were having terrible, our current contract, we're having terrible luck with. We can't even get them to answer the phone during our emergency for cleanup. We had to get dumpsters from GFL because he wouldn't even return our call to get dumpsters for cleanup to put down at our transfer station. And this is an ongoing problem. It's been going on for months. That apparently his excuse was he can't find employees. So that they were very far behind on that too. So we did end up adding that. That wasn't in the original thought of the contract to put the commercial dumpsters into this contract.
Mr. Chairman, I think the greatest difference, if you look at some of the other contracts, I believe Jason was able to get, the real difference is the duration of the contract. It really wasn't, did they have 6 months or 9 months or 12 months to go through the process. Ours was a 3-year proposed contract versus most of them were 6 to 8 or even 9 or 10 years in some cases. And I think that really goes back to the ROI and the investment. I think the trucks roughly are between $400,000 and $500,000 per. Is that right, Jason? Do you remember when we bought them, what the acquisition rate was?
Yeah, it's a ballpark, between 4 and 5, around, between 4 and 600,000 is a ballpark.
So when you look at 10 trucks, I mean, you're looking at $4 to $5 million trying to recover that in 3 years. And I think in hindsight, that's probably what kept most people on the sidelines. But again, nobody gave us that information, so we tried to pull that and find out why didn't you bid and what was your hesitation. And we're making some assumptions because I don't think anybody came right out and said this is the reason why in any of these cases.
We got a lot of questions, in the addendums from the different companies, and they didn't really, to buy the questions, we assumed they were all bidding.
Well, my only argument to that is, though, when Rizzo came in and then later became GFL, they knew it was going to be a 3-year contract possibly with 2 3-year extensions. So they were willing to make all that investment at that time. I can't understand why somebody else went in 3 years later is if they had a 3-year with 2 3-year extensions.
But remember, the difference was they were only acquiring the balance of our trucks. So remember, we still owed on the trucks. I think they paid $450, Jason, was that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So they didn't buy 10 new trucks. They bought what was remaining on our life. So I suspect that played a role in their analysis.
But didn't they just pay them off and then bought new trucks?
Well, we don't know what they might have cycled them within their fleet somewhere else. I mean, I don't really know what happened after that. But, and again, Mr. Chairman, we don't know the definitive answer. We're kind of just
Right.
Making
assuming.
assumptions.
Yeah.
We are.
The Rochester contract was 5 years, and the Wyandotte contract was 6 years, so that would be consistent with what you're saying. What I did notice in the Rochester contract, which I don't know if it's right or wrong, but they're doing business with GFL, we're doing business with GFL, their contractor, or their contract states, contractor's request for an extension shall be submitted to the city 15 months prior to the current expiration date. So they're trying to give themselves and GFL enough time to say, what are we going to do 15 months from now? So
Yep.
I'm suggesting, I don't disagree that maybe the term is going to affect them, and these other contracts would suggest that to be true, but maybe we should also have some specific language in this contract that requires the parties to come to the bargaining table so far in advance, because at least part of the reason this year, even if the term of the contract needs to be addressed, part of the reason this year was we need more time to figure this out. I don't know if 15 is too much, if that's the right number, I'm not suggesting.
At this point, I would say, I don't think so.
Well, it wouldn't hurt, right? I mean, we know that wouldn't hurt.
At
but-
least a year,
but-
it seems like,
Yeah.
yeah, 12 months at least.
But, you know, we've gone through this process now, and we've, you know, that's one of the things that is obviously, would only help us to do that. You know, when we started it in January, we didn't think that was gonna be the issue. We thought that, you know, they would still get multiple, I mean, in the past, Cindy, in other contracts, we've always had people bid on it, and I don't think we ever started a year or 2 years in advance.
No, this was all new back when we did it, it was 2011, we had carried, I mean, Midwestern, they always bid so low that the competitors couldn't touch them, but they did themselves a service because they're no longer in business, because they bid so low, you know, their profit.
Yeah, I don't even think they showed up to any of the inquiries or
I
anything.
thought they were out of business, but they,
I think they're
Doing
doing
Westland.
Westland just redid that. One of the 3 contracts we got from purchasing was from them, because I thought they were out of business too, so I was surprised to see that they were.
Did you notice though that Westland owns
They
the
did the same
equipment and they
Same
pay for
thing we
fuel?
did, right, the
Yeah.
city has to own the equipment, right.
That's, because I looked at that rate and I said, that's gotta be weak, because it was like 5.25.
Right.
And then I started reading the whole contract, and they're just pretty much paying for the drivers. I mean, they own the equipment, they're paying for the fuel.
So I'm assuming if we go back to, 2016, Midwestern was struggling, were they gonna go out of business? And instead, they cut themselves in half, they keep doing business with Westland, and they rid themselves of the paper. So I'm assuming they're still making money, and or Westland was none of our business, so, I don't know, I would like to, I'd like to see us somehow protect ourselves, and I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, but what we should consider is an out for recycling, an out for bulk pickup, not talking about complete cancellations, maybe twice a month instead of, 52 weeks a year, maybe a drop dead date on when we gotta start negotiating the next, contract expiration, and if we can build pricing into any elimination of services. If you look at, and again, I'm not suggesting because Wyandotte, Rochester, or Westland is doing anything, but a lot of those cities, you're paying for bulk pickup, or you're limited in bulk pickup. We got a great product, and I think our residents really enjoy it. At some point, we're only going to be able to raise taxes so much before they stop enjoying it, and I think we need to build some protections into this going forward.
Now,